They won't be happy until we're all miserable and completely grossed out. Here's one, the scary spice rack, a claim your bottle of chili powder is full of rat urine.
When it comes to meat, the USDA seal is required to prove that the meat has been inspected by a federal agency.
Brace yourself for the shocking truth behind your favorite snacks. From sneaky chemicals to hidden bug bits.
So there's a few signs I'll show you here on these simulated bug bites to see if there's any issues going on. The number one thing you want to look for is any signs of infection, and that means redness.
You won't believe what hides in everyday treats we grab without thinking. Factories quietly slip in extra stuff that will make you question what's real and what's not. Once you totally learn these terrifying secrets, you'll likely never want to eat them again. If you dare keep reading, be warned. The truths might completely ruin your next craving, and possibly your hunger for good. Gelatin's gruesome source. Gelatin might seem like a harmless ingredient, but its true source is enough to make anyone uneasy. Though you might have tasted it in sweet treats such as gummy candies or wiggly desserts, few people know how it really comes to be. Gelatin starts as animal parts, specifically the skin, tendons, bones, and ligaments of cows or pigs. These remains are boiled, dried, and processed until they form the protein powder we call gelatin. You might ask, why do food companies use such a chilling process? Gelatin adds that signature bounce in desserts and helps thickening in many items. It can also show up in vitamins, marshmallows, and some medicines. Some even find it in beauty goods like face masks and creams. But once you discover the backstory, it can be tough to ignore. Did you realize that the same parts we usually toss out from meat production end up in your sweet snack? This process turns something like leftover scraps into an ingredient that is nearly everywhere. While regulators may say it's safe to eat, it can still feel disturbing if you think about the animal bits behind every satisfying jiggle. Despite this, gelatin continues to be popular. Alternatives like agar or pectin can replace it in many recipes, but they do not always create that same famous texture. Next time you see a jiggly dessert, you might pause and remember the surprising journey from cow or pig to your plate. Remember, each spoonful you enjoy carries a hidden truth about what truly lurks beneath that sweet, jiggly bliss. Rodent contamination in spices. Rodent contamination in spices might feel like a wild rumor, but it's more common than you think. Farmers grow seasonings like cinnamon, fennel seeds, and ginger in open fields where rodents can scamper freely. While wandering around, these pests often leave behind droppings, hair, or even leftover food. Later, when these plants are processed, bits of that contamination can slip into the final product, ending up in your kitchen cabinet. Even with modern safety checks, government agencies typically allow small amounts of natural contaminants in many foods. That is because fully removing every trace of rodent activity can be tough, especially when millions of pounds of produce are handled each year. Most manufacturers do test for safety, but these guidelines do not guarantee a zero-contamination environment. Though the amounts are tiny and rarely pose an immediate danger to our health, the revelation is stomach-turning. When you sprinkle cinnamon on your oatmeal or brew a soothing fennel tea, you may have a little extra stuff you didn't bargain for. It does raise the question, should we all panic or just accept it? Some consumers choose to buy organic or carefully source their spices, hoping to reduce unwanted extras. Others may look for more thorough safety certifications on packaging. Ultimately, knowledge is key. The next time you reach for your spice jar, remember that farming isn't always a spotless process. Even if a bit of rodent presence is considered acceptable, it's good to know exactly what might be sprinkling into your dinner. A little more awareness can help you minimize unintended surprises. Carbon monoxide in packaged meat. Carbon monoxide, CO, in packaged meat might be one of the most startling facts you'll ever learn. This colorless, odorless gas is typically known for its deadly effects when inhaled in large amounts. Yet, surprisingly, it's used in vacuum-sealed meat products to keep them looking fresh and bright red.
When you buy meat at the grocery store, you look for steak that's bright red because it looks the freshest. But many supermarkets use a special gas in packages that keeps the meat looking fresh for much longer.
By injecting carbon monoxide, companies extend the shelf life of meat and maintain that just-cut appearance for days, sometimes even weeks, beyond what might normally be possible. Why do they do this? It all comes down to money and presentation. Most people view vibrant red meat as a sign of quality and freshness, so products treated with carbon monoxide appear more appealing on store shelves. However, this practice can mask natural signs of aging. Over time, meat still spoils internally, even if its bright color stays put. While regulators in certain regions have allowed this method under strict guidelines, it leaves many consumers feeling uneasy. Carbon monoxide is harmful in different contexts, so the idea of using it in food can spark genuine concern. Critics believe it might lead shoppers to buy older meat without realizing its true condition. On the other hand, supporters argue that regulated use of carbon monoxide is safe at the levels permitted and helps cut down food waste by preserving appearance longer. Insects in candy coatings. Insects in candy coatings might be the last thing you want to munch on, but it's more common than you might believe. People rarely connect sweets to insect excretions, yet many popular candies rely on shellac for that glossy finish. Shellac is secreted by the female lac bug, typically found in parts of Asia, and once refined, it becomes a key icing or coating for your beloved sweets. If you've ever seen a candy's bright, shiny surface, there's a big chance that bug byproducts are to thank. This might surprise you, especially if you only expected sugar, flavor, and color in your treat. The reasons companies prefer shellac are multifold. First, it adds a polished, professional gleam. Second, it helps keep candies from sticking together, preserving their perfect shapes. Third, it's considered safe when used properly, although the thought of snacking on insect excretions may still unsettle some folks. While certain manufacturers have begun seeking plant-based or synthetic alternatives to meet rising consumer concerns, plenty continue to rely on this cost-effective solution. Are these bug-based coatings harmful? In general, they're recognized as safe to eat, but individuals with strong allergies or moral reservations might object. For strict vegans or those who want insect-free candy, it's essential to read ingredient labels carefully. Terms like confectioner's glaze often indicate shellac's presence. Ice cream, tainted with antifreeze. Ice cream may seem like a delightful getaway from the stresses of life, but for many, it hides an unsettling secret, a chemical often used in antifreeze solutions. Known as propylene glycol, this substance helps keep ice cream soft and scoopable straight from the freezer. While you might love the creamy texture it delivers, the thought of finding an antifreeze ingredient in your favorite dessert can be quite unnerving. Producers use propylene glycol to prevent those unwanted ice crystals that turn ice cream into a frozen brick. Most of us have experienced that homemade batch that hardens into an icy block, making every scoop a workout for the wrist. By blending this chemical into commercial recipes, companies ensure a smoother, more appealing treat. Although it's generally recognized as safe in small amounts, the knowledge alone can leave a bad taste. Controversy often flares around the use of propylene glycol. Critics argue that while maybe not outright harmful in moderation, consumers still have a right to know what substances lurk in their dessert. Some worry about potential long-term impacts that research has yet to fully reveal. Others cite ethical concerns, believing that the closer our dessert is to natural ingredients, the better. If you'd rather skip the mystery of possible antifreeze in your bowl, there are alternatives. Many smaller brands and artisan creameries forgo such additives by sticking to simpler formulas: cream, sugar, and flavorings you recognize. Beaver glands in vanilla ice cream. Beaver glands in vanilla ice cream might sound like a tall tale, but it's a strange reality that has existed for decades. The substance in question is called castoreum.
Castoreum is that it smells and tastes like vanilla.
A secretion from sacs located near a beaver's rear. Though it may raise eyebrows, castoreum finds its way into certain vanilla flavorings, perfumes, and even some baked goods. The reason? It provides a unique scent and taste that mimic real vanilla, making it attractive for food makers looking to cut costs or add a twist to their products. Many people are unaware of how frequently castoreum appears in everyday treats. While some brand labels list it only as a natural flavor, the truth behind its source can be a shock. Health experts typically consider it safe, but the idea of eating anything that originates near a beaver's backside feels disturbing for most. Alternatively, some companies now prefer plant-based or synthetic substitutes, which satisfy customers who feel uneasy about eating something derived from animals in such a personal way. Curiously, beaver populations were once threatened due to high demand for this compound and their fur, but stricter rules have helped protect them. Even so, the knowledge that castoreum might be hiding in one's dessert can cause folks to question where their food really comes from. Human hair in bread. Picture biting into your favorite slice of bread, only to find out it might contain bits of human hair. While that sounds like a wild rumor, there's a surprising truth beneath the surface. An important amino acid called L-cysteine, commonly added to bread dough, can be sourced from human hair. Factories often gather large amounts of hair from places like salons, then process it into a form that helps improve dough texture and elasticity. This process is more common than people realize, even though it can sound quite unsettling. Why use hair in the first place? The amino acid L-cysteine can help bread rise better and remain fresher for longer. It's a cheap and effective way to enhance bread's softness, so manufacturers consider it a useful option. However, most consumers have no clue that the bread they're buying might involve hair-based additives along the way. While regulators declare it safe for use, it still feels strange to eat something that started as someone's stray clippings. For those who find the idea too disturbing, there are alternatives to look for. Some companies use synthetic or plant-based L-cysteine in their products. Reading labels closely or contacting the manufacturer can offer clues about how their bread is made. If you prefer a more hands-on approach, baking bread at home lets you control exactly which ingredients go into the mix. Arsenic in apple juice.
Arsenic in your juice. Amid a furor of claims, there is disturbing new evidence revealing levels of the chemical that could be putting your kids in danger.
Arsenic in apple juice feels like a far-fetched rumor, but it's a serious concern that has alarmed many health-conscious consumers. The real shock came when tests revealed higher than expected levels of arsenic in certain brands. Even Dr. Oz addressed the situation, stirring debate despite his at times controversial reputation. However, an unsettling truth remains. Sometimes, your morning cup of apple juice might not be as harmless as you believe. Much of the apple juice sold in the United States is imported from regions with less stringent pesticide guidelines, such as China. Since apple trees can absorb inorganic arsenic through the soil or water, the residue occasionally appears in the finished drink. Over time, this contamination can build up, creating a hidden hazard that might affect both children and adults who rely on juice as a staple. Experts warn that repeated exposure to small amounts of arsenic could pose serious health risks, including potential damage to the liver and kidneys. In severe cases, long-term arsenic exposure can also be linked to cancer. While major government agencies monitor acceptable levels, some argue that even trace amounts carry potential dangers.
Inorganic arsenic. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, upgraded the recall to an urgent classification, indicating the product could cause temporary health issues.
This has led concerned parents and health advocates to demand tighter regulations and better testing standards. For safer sipping, consider buying brands that disclose their sourcing and pesticide practices. Look for labels truly claiming strict purity controls, or opt for organic juice whenever feasible. Tuna and toxic metals.
Canned tuna, the quick and easy protein lots of families find convenient. Problem is, it's known to contain mercury.
Tuna is a favorite catch and a widely enjoyed meal across many cultures. However, hidden beneath its delicious taste is a worrying risk. certain tuna species often harbor toxic metals like mercury, lead, or arsenic. This problem happens because tuna feed on smaller fish that have already absorbed pollutants from contaminated waters. With each step in the food chain, these metals get passed along and can build up inside larger fish. When humans eat tainted tuna, we risk taking in those same metals, which can harm our health over time. Mercury is especially concerning for pregnant women and young children, since it can affect brain development.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration reissued some advice for pregnant women and parents of young children regarding the amount of fish that should be in their diet.
But even adults who consume too much mercury can experience symptoms like dizziness, numbness, or memory issues. In some cases, long-term exposure to heavy metals might lead to more serious conditions, including organ damage or neurological disorders. Experts advise limiting consumption by sticking to smaller tuna varieties like skipjack, which often contain lower metal levels. Some people also choose light tuna over albacore since it generally has less mercury. Reading labels and checking quality certifications can help you find safer options. If you are concerned about toxic metals but still want the flavor and nutrients of fish, consider switching to salmon, trout, or other low-mercury species. Armed with a bit of knowledge, you can make smart decisions for yourself and your family. Chicken farming horrors.
In Australia, nearly 2 million chickens are slaughtered every day for human consumption.
Chicken farming has become a large-scale industry with methods that often prioritize profits over the welfare of the animals. On many factory farms, chickens are crowded into small, dark buildings, leaving them barely enough space to stretch their wings. The birds may live amid their own waste without proper fresh air or sunlight. In these stressful conditions, they can become prone to illness, which is why some producers rely on routine antibiotics just to keep them alive. Besides living in cramped surroundings, chickens can face painful procedures, such as debeaking. Workers trim or remove the tip of their beaks to prevent injuries from aggression that results from overcrowding. However, these birds may still endure high levels of stress, fear, and injuries as they struggle for space and resources. Moreover, the rapid growth demanded by markets can lead to health problems, including deformed bones and heart issues. Legislation varies by country, and while some regions have introduced stricter standards for chicken welfare, many places continue to allow questionable practices. Consumers, whether they eat chicken or not, may find it troubling to learn how these animals are treated. The hidden realities of commercial chicken farms raise moral and health concerns, motivating many people to seek alternatives. Some individuals choose to buy pasture-raised or cage-free poultry or support local farms that offer better conditions. Others shift to plant-based diets as a form of protest against cruelty. Ultimately, knowledge about chicken farming horrors empowers us to make more thoughtful decisions as consumers. This awareness can spark broader changes in how we view our food. A Bible translator who spent years translating ancient biblical texts. The Bible, as we've known it, is not what we think, and Mauro Biglino says we've been lied to for over 2,000 years. What exactly did this translator find, and how can it affect the world as we know it today? If you're curious to find out, then watch this video until the end. Mauro Biglino Journeys from Faith to Doubt. Way before his recent revelation, Mauro Biglino wasn't always skeptical about the Bible. In fact, he spent much of his life believing in it as the Word of God. He studied the sacred texts, read the scriptures, and trusted that they held the truth. But one day, while working on translating ancient Hebrew and Aramaic manuscripts, something strange happened. He came across a word, Elohim, that didn't match what he had always been taught. This word, often translated as God, seemed to have a different meaning when you look at the original Hebrew texts. It was plural. Elohim referred to more than one being. This discovery didn't sit well with Mauro. He couldn't ignore it.
When Elohim is translated in the plural, it reveals plural beings, plural interventions in our evolution as a species.
The Bible, the book he had always trusted, seemed to be saying something different than what he had been told. Could it be that the Bible wasn't speaking about one single all-powerful God, but a group of powerful beings instead? This idea didn't match with the traditional teachings he had grown up with, but there's more. As Mauro continued his work, he couldn't stop thinking about Elohim. The more he looked into it, the more it troubled him. Elohim was a plural word. It meant gods or powerful ones, not just God. But this didn't match what most people had been taught for hundreds of years. For many, the Bible was about one all-powerful God, not a group of powerful beings. This was a big deal. For centuries, people had believed that the Bible only talked about one God, but the translation of Elohim seemed to say something different. Mauro had to ask himself, what did this word really mean? He looked deeper into the history and the language. What he found was surprising. The ancient Hebrew language was very complicated, and Hebrew words could have multiple meanings. Elohim was one of those words. It could refer to a group of gods or powerful beings, not just a single all-powerful deity. As Mauro kept translating, he realized that the Bible might not be telling the full truth about its story.
The term Elohim was not translated, remained Elohim.
I see.
Because in the world, nobody knows the really meaning of the term Elohim.
He began to question everything he had been taught about the Bible. Was there more to the Bible's history than what we had been told? Was it possible that the ancient Hebrew texts weren't just about one God, but about many gods, beings with power, and maybe even different ideas and rules? Mauro knew this was a huge shift in thinking. He had always believed that the Bible was clear about one God, but now he wasn't so sure. His findings made him wonder if the people who had written the Bible knew something different. Maybe the ancient Israelites believed in multiple gods or powerful beings who were in charge of different things, but why had the translation of the Bible kept this secret? The lies they told us. Mauro's discovery about Elohim was just the beginning. The more he looked, the more he found things that didn't match up with what people had been taught. It wasn't just about the word Elohim. There were other parts of the Bible that seemed to have been misunderstood, or maybe even hidden on purpose. For a long time, the Bible was translated in a way that made people think it was all about one God, the God of the Israelites. But as Mauro dug deeper into the ancient texts, he found evidence that the Bible's original meaning was more complicated. What if the Bible was actually telling a story about many powerful beings, not just one? One of the most important things Mauro found was the idea of a sky council. This wasn't a new discovery. It had been there in the Bible all along, hidden in plain sight. The sky council was made up of powerful beings, known as Elohim, who had their own ideas and opinions about how the world should be run. Mauro realized that the Bible had many stories like the divine council that hinted at this council, but over time, these stories had been changed. The idea of multiple gods or powerful beings making decisions together had been erased in favor of a more simple, monotheistic, or one-God view. This was one of the big changes that had been made in the Bible over the years. Mauro couldn't stop asking himself, why did they hide this? Why did they want people to believe in just one God instead of a group of powerful beings? There were many reasons why the translation of the Bible had changed. The early Christians wanted the Bible to fit with their beliefs. They wanted it to be clear that there was only one God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But by doing this, they ignored the parts of the Bible that talked about Elohim as a group of beings with their own powers and roles. They wanted to make the story of God simple, but in doing so, they missed important truths. Mauro realized that this wasn't just about the past. These changes had real consequences today. If the Bible was really about many powerful beings, it could change the way people understood their relationship with the divine. It would also change the way we understood the world, the way we see gods, and even our own human potential. The hidden story of the Nephilim. Mauro's research also led him to a story that had been tucked away for a long time in the Bible. This was the story of the Nephilim, giants who lived on Earth long ago. The Bible mentions the Nephilim in the book of Genesis, but not much is explained about them. They are simply described as the sons of God, and the daughters of humans.
Genesis chapter 6 has an interesting statement about the sons of God taking wives from the daughters of men.
But Mauro found something troubling. The way the Nephilim were described in the Bible didn't match what many people had been taught. You see, over the years, the Nephilim were often seen as just a strange, forgotten part of the Bible. They were often ignored or explained away as a mix of humans and angels. But Mauro, through his translation of the ancient texts, saw that there was more to this story than what people had been told. The Nephilim weren't just giants who lived on Earth. They were part of the larger story of the Elohim, the beings who made decisions about the world. These giants were not human. They were beings of great power, created by the Elohim, and their presence on Earth was part of a bigger plan. The Nephilim were involved in shaping the world's history in ways that were too important to ignore. But why had they been kept hidden for so long? In some ancient texts, the Nephilim were shown as powerful beings who helped the Elohim in their tasks, such as guiding humanity or even interfering in human affairs. The Bible's version of the Nephilim was not only unclear, it seemed to have been intentionally changed over time to downplay their importance. Mauro realized that the story of the Nephilim and their role was another part of the Bible's original message that had been lost. These giants, or Nephilim, were not just part of a myth. They were part of a much bigger, more complex story about the powers that shaped the world. As Mauro dug deeper, he also uncovered something else, something that shook him to his core. He realized that the God of the Bible was not the only God in the ancient world. Other cultures, such as the Babylonians, Egyptians, and Sumerians, had gods too. In fact, many of their gods shared similar names and powers to the Elohim in the Bible. For instance, in the Sumerian texts, there was a group of gods who were called the Anunnaki. These gods were said to have come from the sky, just like the Elohim. In ancient Babylon, there were also stories of gods who created the world and interacted with humans in similar ways to how the Elohim did in the Bible. Could it be that these gods were the same beings? Were the Elohim just one group of many powerful beings, each with their own agenda? Mauro began to believe that the Bible was not just a book about one God, but a story about many gods, powerful beings who each played their role in the creation and shaping of the world. But over time, these stories had been twisted and changed to create the idea of one all-powerful God. The truth was much more complicated, and that was something that had been hidden for thousands of years. The Great Cover-Up. As Mauro translated the writings further, he began to realize something shocking. The story of the Bible actually wasn't just altered by mistake. It had been carefully controlled and changed on purpose. The truth about the gods and their role in the world had been buried. People in power didn't want the truth to get out. They wanted to keep everyone believing a certain version of history. This wasn't just about hiding a few details. Whole sections of history had been erased. Important stories were removed or twisted so that people would believe in one God and one truth. By doing this, those in control could influence what people thought and believed for centuries. Mauro believed that the people who wrote the Bible made these changes because they wanted to control the masses. If they kept the truth hidden, they could create a world where one God had all the power and no one would question it. The truth about the other gods, the Elohim, and their role in history was lost in the shadows, but not all of the original texts were lost. Some had survived for thousands of years, tucked away in hidden libraries or forgotten places. These ancient books were the key to understanding the full story of humanity's past. The most important of these books was the Book of Enoch. It told the story of the Elohim, the Nephilim, and the angels. It explained how these beings interacted with humans, teaching them knowledge and guiding them. The Book of Enoch didn't make it into the Bible, even though it was once widely read and accepted.
The Book of Enoch should be included in the Bible because Jude quotes it. Is that true?
Why? Because it showed too much. It painted a picture of gods working closely with humans, and that didn't fit with the new version of the Bible that people in power were trying to create, so it was removed. Mauro discovered that the hidden books weren't just myths. They revealed a deeper truth about our past, intentionally kept from us. These ancient stories explained the ongoing relationship between humans and the Elohim, the gods. In the beginning, the Elohim helped guide early humans. They taught us how to farm, how to build, and how to live in communities. The Nephilim were not just figures of legend, but real beings who had a lasting impact on the world's early civilizations. Morrow knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Many people wouldn't believe what he had discovered, but he was determined. The truth was too important to ignore. Let us know in the comments section. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. Remember to like, share it, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.